All right, let's go to Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda, in Oklahoma City. What's up, Rhonda?
Hi, Dr. John.
How are you?
I'm rocking on till the break of dawn.
All right, fantastic. Things going okay? Doing all right?
Doing all right.
Very cool. So what's up?
Well, I watched a show a while back looking at gaslighting in the movie Tangled. My husband and I have been married over 10 years now, and he is an expert gaslighter. I've been through counseling, and my husband and I have worked through a lot of things. And while it's not as personal feeling as it once was, the gaslighting is still common. I'd like your advice on what to do when it is happening.
Okay, this is some behind the curtain stuff. Whenever they came, the team came and said, hey, we want you to do some of these React videos. I was like, dude, no one's going to watch this. And so you're telling me that you watched the Tangled one.
I did.
Okay, and you recognized, oh man, this is us. This is me. This is my husband.
Yes.
Give me an example that you just made the whole team feel good, and you make me feel, I have to say I was wrong. So I said, no one's going to watch this. I was wrong. That's my one time. I'll say that for 2022. So tell me what it looks like. Give me an example or two of your husband gaslighting you as an expert.
Yes, as an expert. One thing is just if I ask a direct question, it could be something as simple as, are you going to the store tonight? He'll, ask me like, what do you mean go to the store? Or just make me feel like I'm crazy for asking a question. Something else might be if I'm going out with a family member or a friend, he'll make some comment like, well, what's she going to wear tonight? Or somehow implying that it's inappropriate.
So does it have to do with, is he just poking at you? Is he belittling you? Or is it his way of saying, I don't want you to go, but he doesn't have the courage to state his needs out loud. So he constantly makes you feel a little bit off kilter and a little bit nuts.
I think it's that last one.
Okay. Or when you say, hey, are you going to go to the store tonight? Is that you asking him somewhat passively, hey, I need some help around here. Could you run to the store for me? Or does he have keys in hand and he's walking out the door and you just ask, hey, where are you going?
No, he's actually super helpful.
Okay.
And it's more, I think he puts pressure on himself. And so sometimes he's reading something into it that's probably not there.
Oh, like you might be accusing him or...
I think he might see it that way.
Okay. So, again, I'm going to grossly overgeneralize this when it comes to men and women, but many folks, especially men, don't know the language of feelings. What I mean by that is something happens, somebody asks them a question, they experience a thing, somebody asks them, hey, will you help me with something? And they don't want to do it, they can't do it, they don't have time to do it. And so they feel uncomfortable. Either they feel uncomfortable because they can't meet somebody's needs, they don't know how to do something and they feel less than, whatever the thing is. They're not well versed in the language of feelings. And so this thing happens to their body and they begin to look externally as just somebody else's fault, right? And that's where you come in. For whatever reason, you ask that one question and he feels a certain way, doesn't know how to look in the mirror and say, these are my feelings happening to my body about my issues. It's nothing to do with my wife. But the response is, she's making me feel this way, so I've got to turn this back around on her. Does that sound right?
It sounds exactly right.
Okay. So what do you do? What have you tried in the past that has worked or hasn't worked?
I've tried a lot of things. Some have worked and some haven't worked. Definitely trying the same thing does not work.
Right.
Some things that work better than others is if sometimes I'll just simply ignore it and just kind of move on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that can sometimes build up over time, though, if it's not addressed. Sometimes if it feels more intense, I'll just exit. I want
to point this out to everybody listening. Avoidance is, unless you're avoiding a bullet, right? You're avoiding physical harm. relational avoidance almost never helps.
Yeah.
Right? It almost sometimes it's not the right moment. Like if somebody's really fired up, this isn't the moment to have a
Right.
deep conversation, but not circling back and avoiding it long term is never a good idea, right? So you've tried that, doesn't work. What else?
Probably some of the best success is if I follow up with a question like, what makes you think that? Or what makes you ask that? Sometimes he'll be more open to it. Often he'll just, and it's like you mentioned, certain topics are more sensitive than others.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of those landmine topics that he just really puts up a big wall against.
So I want to flip the gaslighting conversation around for you, okay? Less about how you can deal with him and more about you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So here's the path forward, I think, when it comes to gaslighting. You get very, very clear about your worth. You get very, very clear about, I'm worth more than being talked to like this. Or I'm not crazy. Stop talking to me like I'm crazy. My request for you, I'm your wife. I need some help with fill in the blank. Become very clear about what you like and what you don't like. The nerd word is these are just needs. Here's what I need. I need you to not come home and try to grope me when you're covered up in oil or whatever from changing the like I don't need that, right? Or I need you to, that sounded kind of weird. I was thinking about car oil, not like Ben in the booth started laughing. Not that kind of oil. It's not what I'm talking about. But I need you to help with the dishes. I need you to help with, right? So what do you like? What do you not like? And then also, this is important, and this gets left out of the gaslighting conversation a lot. You have to learn to be comfortable with saying I was wrong. I messed up. Taking ownership of the times you do, like, withhold, or you're angry, or you snap at, like, whatever, you fly off the handle. Coming back and saying, nope, that's not gaslighting. I was mean, and I'm sorry, right? And then you have to get over this idea that it's your responsibility to make him feel good about himself. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
And so then you land there. You said things are getting a little bit better?
Yes.
Tell me what that means.
So there's some things. One of the big issues for me was I really wanted kids, and quite frankly, that one I just had to decide, if I could live with him without kids, and I did. So I think that has calmed things down a little bit because he feels more secure that I've made that decision.
Can we pause? Can we pause right there?
Yes.
Have you grieved that?
I'm in the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you just make a logical, mathematical decision,
Mm-hmm.
that resentment will build up over time and will become highly explosive. Or worse, It becomes toxic, right? So explosive is we have this big blowout. Somebody cheats on somebody. It's a big explosion. Toxic is we just slow drip, dislike and disgust and get away from me and you're gross and ugh. And you see him make a face and you interpret that negatively and he interprets your words negative, right? It just poisons everything. If you don't grieve it and say, I wanted kids and I had a picture of our life having kids and it's not going to happen and I'm choosing to stay in a relationship where it's not going to happen. And so ultimately the choice is mine and I'm making it and I'm going to grieve it and then we're going to move. Does that make sense? So make sure that you spend time changing that picture for yourself. Okay, good. Okay, so you're dealing with that in process, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does he know that he's quote unquote getting what he wants? He didn't want kids. Did you know that going in?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we had talked about it before and it changed. So that was one of the hard things to work through.
Okay. Does he have a language for, I made a choice that is an existential pain for my wife?
I don't think so. I think it's just a lot of fear.
Okay. He's got to take ownership of that. Doesn't mean it was the wrong choice for y'all. Doesn't mean he's a bad guy. But he has to own, I made a choice that hurt my wife in her soul. And she chose to feel that hurt and stay with me anyway. But I made a decision that was what caused my wife to hurt. He's got to own that. Otherwise, the deflection mechanism is gaslighting.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way to keep at arm's length from knowing I hurt somebody is just to make them feel nuts all the time.
Yeah. A lot of sense.
Okay. Have you gotten good about being very clear?
I am getting better.
Okay. All right, good.
It is taking practice. So yes. One thing that came up somewhat recently is the resentment thing. And I had a hard time conveying that I was frustrated with the decision without him recognizing how big of a decision it was, and without him going straight to, well, you can divorce me or you can do these kind of things. And I don't want to go there. But actually, I read Terrence Real's book and just came to him and said, I feel like I am going to resent you at some point if you don't work out this stuff.
Right.
And still to be determined how much that's sunk in or not.
Yeah.
So
can I ask you this? The way you just phrased that, I think is really important. I think I'm going to resent you if you don't do this stuff. And the way you said it's still to be determined tells me he's not doing the stuff. And so the question I have for you is, does this ultimately end with you leaving? Or does this ultimately end with you leaving psychologically but staying physically? And that's
what I'm afraid of.
But it's a fear that you can control.
Right.
And so I'm scared of a lion. You have the choice to say, I'm going to do the hard work and set this thing down, or I'm going to leave. It's the middle ground that's going to make you insane. And quite frankly, you're going to poison a guy who just said, here's what I need. I need to not have kids. And I'm not letting him off the hook. If he was on the phone, by the way, we'd be having this opposite conversation here. Ultimately, this lands on you being able to say your needs out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Do not talk to me like that. I'm not accusing you of anything. If you feel like I'm accusing you, I need you to ask that question. I need you to go to the store for me instead of, are you going to the store? Because if you're going, I need you to pick up some things. So that's kind of a passive, right? I want you to become very affirmative. And I love the word you just used, practice. This is probably something you've never done before, huh?
Yeah, it's been practice, yes.
Good for you. Good for you. Tell me a success you're having.
One thing that we've worked out is, especially when we first got into marriage, we were very, stereotypical roles, and I was doing the cooking and that kind of stuff, and we kept hitting a wall with it because he wouldn't like it or whatever, and so he has taken over the cooking, and I do the dishes, and it really works well.
It's a good partnership there?
Yes.
Outstanding. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. So y'all are practicing changing your behaviors, right? Not just thinking through things, but y'all are doing different things.
Right. Yes.
That's awesome. And it's okay if y'all can develop this relationship. I mean, this communication pattern, which I love. In our house, let's say, and I'll just use my kids, for example. They don't have permission in the house to say, Mom, this dinner's gross, because that's disrespectful and rude. They can say, I tried it and I don't care for it. That's factual. That's fair. They're allowed to say that. There's a kind way to say things. So there's a difference when you make food all day and then somebody sits down and is like, this is gross. Versus, thank you so much for this dinner. Let's go back to the burgers. Let's do something, right? So there's a kind way to say things moving forward, and calling one another to a more dignified, respectful way of interacting with each other. I think it's just something you practice, right? Especially if you've never seen it before.
Right.
Well, that's awesome. It sounds like you're on the right track.
so.
I want you to circle back to the very beginning here. I want you to spend some time writing down what you're worth. Writing down very specifically, what are your needs? What do you need from him? Write down very specifically how he broke your heart when it came to kids, how it hurts. And it may be that one day with you and a counselor and him, you write him a letter and say, I need you to feel this. And you read it. And in that letter, it talks about how much it hurts and how you had plans. You were going to go to graduations. You couldn't wait to stand by your daughter while she got married to some knucklehead, right? You had these pictures and these plans, and they're not going to happen. And there's something about reading that out loud and then saying, but I'm staying anyway. And so now we're going to build something totally new. There is no picture in the frame. We got to build a whole new picture and live into it. And then that's going to be your life's adventure moving forward. But you've got to stop in the grief section. You've got to sit there and grieve this thing. Got to grieve it. And then we're going to move on. And then the more you hang on to it, that becomes an issue with you. If you choose to forgive, grieve, and start behaving, start moving in different directions, you can't circle back on it and be like, oh, well, because it's done. It's done. And then he becomes the victim there, right? So we're going to work together on this deal. Good for you for challenging him, for saying no more gaslighting in my house. Now I want you to go one step deeper and decide, I've got value and I've got worth. And I am going to ask the people who are in relationship with me in my home to acknowledge that value. And I'm going to acknowledge theirs.